Good morning. Welcome to the Church360 Unite Settings, Pages, and Navigation webinar. My name is, oops, I had those a little bit out of order. My apologies here. Let me just go ahead really quick. Sorry. Quick introduction here. My name is Jordan Bogart, and I am a software support technician here with Concordia Technology Solutions. You can see my contact information there. So if you have any questions, of course, you can reach out to me. I've been here with Concordia Technology Solutions for over 11 years here now at this point, and I just appreciate the opportunity to serve our churches. All phones and microphones have been muted for today's session. So if you have any questions in that questions window, just ask any questions you might have. And during the webinar today, helping me answer those questions is going to be my manager, Rod Kiles. He has been here at Concordia Technology Solutions coming close to 25 years here now. So he's been here a long time. He is very knowledgeable, and he's going to be happy to answer any questions you guys might have today. So just going back here real quick, I want to just briefly go through our overview of today's session. So just kind of the basic structure for the class. We're doing our overview here right now, and then we're going to get into discussion about the topics we're going to cover, which I'll talk about here in just a second. There is going to be a short quiz at the end of the session. No pressure on you guys. You guys are not being graded. This is more just basically going through and seeing, hey, did what I say stick with you guys here? And that's just kind of what we're looking at there. And then, of course, if you did hold any questions at the end, there'll be time at the end for any questions you guys might have. As far as what we're going to be covering today inside of Church360 Unite, we're going to be going through our settings menu, just covering some of the basic settings, what they mean, and kind of how you can utilize those. We're also going to be talking about the themes section, how we can customize the look and feel of our church website. So a lot of different options there. We're going to be looking at pages here as well, the pages menu, setting up that navigation on your site, adding in different kinds of pages. And we're also going to be talking about adding content to your pages. So we're going to be talking about the rows and cells system, actually adding content to those cells, and then different cell types that we offer, controlling kind of what kind of information you put on your page. So with all that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a Church360 Unite website. So this is a blank slate, first getting started Church360 Unite website. Now, let me back up one more step here. When you want to sign into Church360 Unite, it may look different depending on your theme. I'm using the Wonderful Cross theme, and we'll talk about more about different kinds of themes later on. Up here in the top right-hand corner, what I do here is I look at a little person icon, and there's a sign in button, and after you click on that, and then here you would put in your email address and then your password that you have set up when you set up your account initially here. You can tell the system to remember me, and that way it's going to remember it, as long as that's going to be kind of saved to your web browser then. So it should keep you logged in. And then if you ever forget your password, you can click this forgot your password link, and then that's going to let you put in your email address that you sign in with, and then our system will send you an email with a link to reset your password. Okay. Now let me go ahead and sign in here. Oops. That was a password for another Unite site. It's the joy of password managers. So let me just log in briefly another way here. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get into just kind of some of the meat and potatoes of today's training. So let's go ahead and start in with our settings menu. So here in our settings menu, we're just seeing some basic account information to start off with here in the accounts tab. Now, I should mention just a step back here. This black bar along the top, you're only going to see this if you are what's considered to be a publisher or above in your Church360 Unite login. We'll get more into the different kinds of users in tomorrow's session about Church360, but you wouldn't see this black bar if you're just a standard user on your site or if you're not signed in. But depending if you're a publisher, a designer, or an administrator, like my login is, you're going to see different options on here. In the case of administrator, you're going to see all the options. So what you're seeing on here on the top would be, again, if you're an administrator, you would see all these different options then. Let me actually go ahead, and I realize I still have my camera on. Let me go ahead and turn that off here for now. And let's go ahead then and so let's take a look at this church information screen and what kind of information it can tell us. Starting off here, we have our usage. Now, when I set this site up here, I just set it up on the premium level plan, which gives you unlimited space and storage for different files, images, video, audio that you might upload to your Church360 Unite website. That's kind of the top level plan of Church360 Unite. That may not be what your church has. There's different, so as I mentioned, there's different levels. The standard subscription would give you 2 gigabytes worth of storage. The advanced plan would give you 10 gigabytes worth of storage, and the premium plan gives you unlimited storage. And again, what goes into that? It's the images, the video, the audio, the files that you upload to your site. That uses up some of your storage. And if you're on one of the plans that does have a limited amount of storage, it'll actually show you a little bar, giving you a visual representation of how much storage you have left. Moving on here, we have our church information. So this is just basic information about our church. So the name of the church, a good contact email for a person, for a good contact email for the church, the phone number, the address, all that good stuff there, and the time zone. Now, the neat part about this here is this does have some bearing on your homepage. So when I go to my homepage here, if I put a 1 after the name of my church, okay, I put that in here and I click Save Changes, you can see that it's actually going to go ahead and update the banner here on the main page to reflect that church name. This is also true of the address information, email address, and phone number you see down here at the bottom of the page. So if you make changes there, that is going to be reflected back on your homepage and then within the footer of your church website here. So I changed it back, and you can see that 1 is gone now. Okay, so that's the basic information. The time zone specifically with that affects is when we get into our calendars, and it's basically how the system knows how to relate the times of events for users who are visiting your page who may be in a different time zone here. So that's what we see on the accounts page here. If I go to calendars here next, this is going to show us the different event calendars that we have in Church360 Unite. This isn't a topic we're going to be covering so much today. We'll be covering this again more tomorrow in our next session. We talk about users, groups, and events, basically. So we'll be talking more about that there. Next up here, we have the domain section. Now, if you look up at our church website right now, to get to our church website, you would have to go to unite2025.360unite.com. That's the website you have to go to. That can be a little bit of a mouthful. A lot of churches will say, I don't want to have that .360unite.com at the end. I just want the name, the name of our church, .org or .com or .net or whatever domain name you might have. You have the ability to do that. Now, in order to do that, you do need to have a custom domain. A custom domain does come with some plans of Church360 Unite. Specifically, if you have the advanced plan or the premium plan, your subscription comes with a custom domain. And how you would get that is you would reach out to us, you'd let us know what domain you want. We'll check and see if it's available, and if it's available, we can purchase it for you and go ahead and connect that to your Church360 Unite account, and that's just part of your subscription. Now, if you're not on an advanced plan, you're still on a standard plan, you do have the option of purchasing a custom domain through us as well. You want to reach out to your software consultant for that if that's something you're interested in doing. Or if you have a domain through another source, you can actually connect that custom domain using the host records we have here. You would need to get into wherever your domain is hosted and add in these host records. Then, down at the bottom here of this domain section, you would leave this www in place, don't get rid of it, but then you would put in your domain name. So if our domain name is ChristLutheranChurch.org, we put in ChristLutheranChurch.org at the www after we've added in those host settings and click Save Changes, and then it's not instant, but it does take some time to kind of connect with the domain and everything. It usually doesn't take too long, but allow up to a day for it. If everything's been set up right, then when people go to put in your custom domain, it should bring them to your Church360 Unite website. Another thing you can do with domains, if you have them, this comes with the premium plan, is actually custom emails can also be set up through Church360 Unite. So they would be emails using your domain. So instead of saying like gmail@gmail.com at the end, it would have your church's domain at the end. This is a lot of churches like to have this just because it looks a little more professional. It's something, again, it comes with the premium plan. It does not come with the advanced or standard plan, and you would need to have your domain with us if you want us to set up those custom emails for you. So you would need the custom domain, and then you can purchase an email package of 10 emails. And again, for pricing on that, I would recommend reaching out to your software consultant, and they can provide you with more information on that. That is what a custom domain would do for you. Okay, moving right along. Next up, we have Google Analytics. Now, this is a free tool that Google offers that can help provide analytical information about your church website. So, how people, what pages are people looking at your site? How much time are they spending on your site? Where are they focused? Just kind of giving you that insight into how people are using your church website. So again, this is a free tool Google offers. If you're interested in setting it up, you would come to this Google Analytics tab and click on this link here, and then you can sign up and have it connected to a Google account. Once you go through the setup on their side, they're at some point going to provide you with a Google Analytics for account number. Now they're going to tell you, oh, you need to go into like your site's code and you need to put this piece of code in a specific spot. It's a lot simpler than that here in Unite. All we need is that account number. You would take that account number, check this Google enable Google Analytics box, and paste this in that Google Analytics account number into the account number field. Click Save Changes, and we will automatically place that code where it needs to go on your church website. So basically, Google Analytics can connect to your church website, and you can use Google Analytics for that. So again, it's not something you have to use. It can provide some extra insight. So it is a helpful tool to have if that's something you're interested in using. So once you put in all that information, you click Save Changes, and again, that's going to go ahead and make sure that code is placed in the appropriate site if you want to set up Google Analytics. Moving right along next, we have integration. This is for our users who also use Shepherd Staff. If you use Church360 members, you don't need to worry about this. Or if you don't use Shepherd Staff or Church360 members, you wouldn't need to worry about this. But this is specifically for our Shepherd Staff users. What this is going to let us do is this is going to go ahead and bring in your people from your Shepherd Staff database into the user section so you can use the online directory functions of Church360 Unite. This screen provides step-by-step information of where you would need to go inside of inside of Shepherd Staff to go ahead and fill in the information from your Unite site, so you can actually then connect your Shepherd Staff to Church360 Unite. So you would just follow these steps here. It's going to be Shepherd Staff is going to be looking for this token and subdomain. You'll be able to provide those to Shepherd Staff. You would go ahead and put that information in, and there's the utility in Shepherd Staff you would run. Again, this talks about how you would run it to bring that information in. So that is an option for our Shepherd Staff users. Okay. Moving right along, next up we have social links. So this social links page here, what this is letting us do is this is letting us at the bottom of our page, you might go to websites and you might see icons along the bottom of the page like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. You might see those icons and you can click on those and you get to that, that organization's Facebook page or YouTube page. And you can do that here too. How this works is you see these different icons here. So you could put in a link to your church's Facebook page here. Now, I don't have a specific Facebook page I'm going to link to, but let me show you the basic idea of how this works. So you would put in the page, and you want to make sure you're putting in the full URL here. So I'm going to do http://www.facebook.com. And if I save that, now you can see at the bottom of my page, I have that Facebook icon. When I click on this, this opens up whatever link I had put in that spot. So it is going to link to whatever you put here. It wouldn't necessarily have to be a Facebook page, but obviously for messaging purposes, you really want to make sure you're putting a link to your Facebook page on the Facebook icon. But you could do, we have that set up here so you'll be able to do that for, again, a few different sources: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Vimeo. All those different options are there if your church wants to use them. So again, it can be a handy way to link to your church's social media presence then, basically. Okay. Moving along to the last option, again, we're not going to be covering this so much today. This will be part of the next session, but I'm going to just briefly mention it here. This is where we can send the text messaging function at Church360 tonight. We'll dive more into that during the next session. So just kind of want to show that to you here. And that's going to conclude our section on the settings menu of Church360 Unite. Next, we're going to go ahead and move on and talk about themes. So I'm going to click on themes here. And this is going to bring us to our themes page. Now, themes in general are kind of the overall look and feel of your church website. So when you first start a Church360 Unite site, it's going to ask you to pick a theme to start off with, but you're not necessarily locked into that. You can change that if you would like. So when we come here to the theme page, the first spot it has us at is the Browse section. Now, the Browse section presents us with the different themes that are on offer here in Church360 Unite. I'm right now using the Wonderful Cross theme, and when you pick one of these themes, it has you pick a preset. There's just kind of a starting point for that theme. This is going to be like default images, colors, things like that. But again, it's just a starting point. So when I pick a theme, let's say I pick this material theme, you can see it, and it's going to present me with a list of presets. Let's say I just want to go with the default, the first one here, that blue one, and I can click Apply Theme. And when I close out, you can see my page has switched to that material theme. So you can come in here, you can pick your theme, and then when you pick your theme, you pick your preset, and that's how you get started. Now, I want to briefly talk a little bit more about just themes in general. Themes basically break down into two categories. They're what we call horizontal themes and vertical themes. Most of our themes are considered horizontal themes. And when I say horizontal themes, let me go back to Wonderful Cross for just a second. What I mean by that is your navigation of your church website is arranged horizontally along the top of your page. This is what we see from majority of our users. It's not necessarily everyone, but most people go for the horizontal themes. Big reason why is you notice as I hover over like About Us, it will show other pages under that About Us category. This is exclusively available in horizontal themes. And vertical themes, which we'll talk about in just a minute, we don't offer that. And so a lot of churches like to have that sub-navigation we can get with the categories. Now, there are a couple of vertical themes as well if you're interested in using those. I'll point those out. That's going to be, of course, the vertical theme, but also the minimal theme. So let me switch to the vertical theme for just a second. And let's pick one of our options here, click Apply Theme. And you can see how this is going to look a little bit different. Let me close this out. And you can see now my navigation is aligned vertically along the left side of the page. Now you'll notice I don't have as many items in the navigation because some of those items were actually categories, and categories do not work in the vertical navigation. So this is a good option though if your church really only has a handful of pages that you need to present to people. If you have kind of more detail though, the horizontal theme is probably going to be more apt for what you want to do. So let me go ahead and switch back here to a horizontal theme. Now another thing I want to point out here down at the bottom, it's kind of hard to see, but I'll highlight it. There is some text here down at the bottom that gives you a little bit of a description of the theme, and it also points out a few things you can customize about the theme. So for example, if designing a custom header, the main background can be swapped with an image sized at 1600 by 640 pixels, or you can load a custom logo sized at 708 by 80 pixels. And this has to do with our customized menu. Not all themes offer the same options across the board. And so for things like background images, it's going to tell you down here what size image it's expecting when you go ahead and you bring in a custom image or you're kind of doing customization. So look down here as a guide if you're wondering when you get to the customize section, hey, what size should this image be? Two other buttons to point out down here at the bottom are the save as and delete functions. The save as function will let you create a copy of an existing theme. But one key difference that it's going to do here when you do save as, it's going to enable access to this edit tab. This edit tab is going to allow you full access to the actual code of your theme. Now, this is a pretty advanced feature for a lot of churches. It just kind of, they look at this and go, that's way too much. I don't really need access to the entire code of my theme. It's not really what I got Church360 for. I wanted more of a easy, straightforward website builder where the tools are kind of laid out for me. But for some users, they appreciate the control of being able to go into, hey, I can design this exactly the way I want to because I know how to do this coding thing. So it's not for everyone, but it is a useful tool for those who know how to take advantage of that. Now, so basically when you do save as, it's creating a copy of the theme for that. Now, if you create a clone, use the save as, it creates what we call a clone theme. If you decide later, you know what, I don't need that anymore, you can click on it so it's highlighted in blue and then click delete, and that would get rid of that save theme. And of course, you make any changes to your theme, you pick your theme and then pick a preset and click apply theme, that would save your changes. So that's how we can select the theme here. Okay, moving on to the next item here on the list, we have the styles section. Styles section. The styles section is our solutions for fonts in Church360 Unite. To give a little bit of a history lesson here on how we used to do things in Church360 Unite and why we changed it. It used to be that when you were working on a page, you really had free reign of exactly what you wanted to do with your font right then and there on the page. You want to change the size, change the size. You want to change the color, change the color. You can do all sorts of different things with that font, but the thing is, you only really had that right there where you made the change. So let's say later you're working on their page and you go, oh man, I really like the way the font looked back on this other page. Well, do I remember the exact shade of blue that I got? Do I remember the exact font size that I had? I don't remember the exact font. I don't remember this exact font size. I don't remember the exact color, but I think this looks kind of close. And the problem we ended up finding was there was just a lot of inconsistency on people's pages. It just kind of looked a little bit sloppy because there wasn't a unified theme across the board because people were, making close approximations, but it wasn't exact. And so we said, okay, you know what? I think there's a better way we can do this. Let's go ahead and instead of you just designing your fonts on the fly, we say, hey, let's come here into the style section and you can design your fonts up front before you start really getting into your church website. Now, when we look at our styles, they're broken up into two categories, block styles and inline styles. Block styles are intended to be your attention grabbers. These are supposed to be the big flashy pieces of fonts that are going to be like the headings and kind of draw the eye to them. The inline style is going to be more like the body text. This is going to be the actual content of the website where people are actually reading through and looking at what, kind of the content of the site. So I have them broken up into those styles. And we have some default styles here to start off with our block styles and inline styles. Now, if we want to add in a new style, down here at the bottom right-hand corner, we would click Add Style. And this brings up a window where we can start designing a new style. Up here at the top, first off, you would name your style. So let's go ahead and call this style here example. And then we can pick if it's a block style or an inline style. Now you might notice when I switch to block style, this just has more options than inline style. In fact, the block style has all the options that the inline style has and more. And if you think about it, that makes sense. There's more things we want to do with these block styles to kind of make them stand out more. Whereas inline styles, again, it's probably going to be pretty simple, pretty standard. So because block style has everything that the inline style has, I'm going to switch over here to the block style. We're just going to take a look at that. So starting off with block style here, let's look at the font family. If we were in Microsoft Word, they would just call this the font. But this is basically just the font style here. And when you click on this, you have a lot of different options that are available. I want to bring special attention to the first option here called Inherit. Inherit is a special option where it's going to adapt to the font that's around it. So it's going to look around and say like, okay, well, if I go down a little bit, I find another style that's using this particular font, I'm going to copy that. So it's going to look around it to copy the text around it to kind of blend in. You'll see that inherit option in at least one other place as well. But I just want to bring special attention to that. But let's actually go ahead and pick a font family here. So if I go down through the list, again, you get a lot of different options. I like to use this Roboto text. And you might have noticed, you might have not, down here is where you're actually going to see a sample of what this font looks like. So I picked the Roboto font. The next up here is the font style. Now the font style, you're going to have different options here depending on the font family you picked. Roboto is one I like to pick because it has a lot of options here for font style. But if like I picked Righteous here, for example, well, I don't really have any other options. That's just the way the font style is for Righteous. So I like to pick Roboto again just because it has a lot of options. But what font style typically affects is two things. The weight of the font, or kind of how thick the font is, you can kind of see that there. And it also decides if this font is by default italicized. So let's say with this style that I'm designing, I want this to be bold by default. So I'm going to make this bold. Okay. Next up, we have the font size. Again, you'll see it has this inherit option, but we can also pick a font style. Now, this does not use like the standard point system that Microsoft Word uses, for example. It uses a system we call EM. EM is just an arbitrary unit. But basically what it means, if we look here in the middle, you can see there's an option here that's 1 EM. So this is what 1 EM is. And then everything else is either a percentage smaller of an EM or a percentage larger than an EM. So again, this is a header. I want this to stand out. Let's make this 1.75. I want this to be big so people can see it here. So I'm going to select that there. And then next up we have text decoration. This is basically just saying if we want this font to always be underlined or always have a strike through it, we can set that here. That is something you can change on the fly with a font if it's underlined or strike through, but if you always want it to be underlined, you always want it to have a strike through, you can set that up here. But we're going to go ahead and say none on that. Next up, we get the color of the font. So this is just what the color of the text is. Now, when we click on this box here, we get a pretty robust color picker tool here. Now, you can do this in a couple different ways. You can go in here and kind of drag this around and kind of get this to be the color that you want it. So I kind of want maybe like this dark purple color here. Oops, let's let it go. Oops, hold on. We're getting there. Well, we'll use the green. Yeah, I want that to be green there. Okay, so that we can do it that way. The other way you could do this, let me bring this back, is you can see there's values here for RGB. So think of basically just blending red, green, and blue together to get a color. There's also what we call hue, saturation, and brightness. So you can kind of put in values in here to increase and decrease these different values to get a specific color. Now, a third way you can do this, and this is for more of our techie people, is if you know the exact hex code of the color you want, you can put in the hexadecimal code of that color, and it will give you that exact color that you want. So, a couple different ways you can approach it. But that's how you can change the color of the font. So let's go ahead and I'm going to make this blue here. Perfect. And I click outside the box, you can see that font is now blue. Now that would be the last option you would have for an inline text. But again, we're working with a block text, so the next thing we'd have here is a background color. So if you always want to apply a background to this text, you could go in here and you'd have that color picker again, but this time you can go ahead and pick, what color you want behind that text. So you can see it applies a background to the text in this case. Again, that's something, if you want it, you can do that. Okay, so moving along, next up we have the margin and the padding of this font here. Margin and padding is kind of the way we do spacing here. Now, the best way to think about margin and padding is think of there's an invisible box around this text. Now, what I could do here is this is all measured in EM. So if I want to say I have a half EM, you have a top, right, bottom, and left margin here. So I have let's say I want to put a half EM top margin on this text. And then maybe I also want to do a 0.25 padding on this text. Now, the difference between margin and padding is this. Again, we're thinking there's an invisible box around this text. Think of margin as the space between the invisible box and other text. Think of padding as the space between the invisible box and the text itself. So those two are kind of separate there. And you can do a top, right, bottom, and left margin and padding here. Okay, so we have that. And then finally, you could apply a border to this text. So whenever this text is used, a border would automatically get put around it. How this works is you would select the style of border you want to use. Let's say we want to do a dotted line border. And then you could choose, again, in EM, the weight, or kind of the size of that border. So let's go ahead and I want to do a 2 EM border. Okay, so you can kind of see that's how that would be measured then there. And you can even change the color by clicking on the box here, and you can change the color of the border using this color picker. Now, once I have this the way I want it, I can click the Save option here, and this has created this style that then I can use when I am designing my page. Now, I want to draw your attention over here to this font load section. When we talk about font load, we have to think about when we are using different fonts on our pages, specifically different font families. Every time you would go to a page, your website has to load in those different font families. Now, just adding one more in like we did, it does raise this meter here, but it wouldn't be too much to worry about. Yes, technically it would cause your page to load a little slower, but this would not be a noticeable difference. It's really if you start adding in multiple font families, like 3, 4, 5, probably 4 or 5 font families, where you're going to start getting into this red on the meter here, and that's where you might start to notice a noticeable increase in your load times between pages. And again, for consistency's sake, we probably don't want to use too many font families within our website. We just, again, it kind of looks more clean, more professional when we're maybe, again, just using a couple at the very most. So just bear that in mind. Now, if you need to edit any of these existing styles, you can click on the style that you want to edit here. This is going to bring up a window where then you can make changes to this style, and you can do a couple of different things. If once you go through and make all these changes, you want to keep the original style, but then you want to also keep the changes that you made and put it into a new style, you could do a save as. That would make a new style here. Save is just going to save your changes, and then delete would delete the style, which again, I'm going to go ahead and delete the style. So we click delete, and you can see that style is now gone, and you see that font load returned back down to the bottom here. So we're not, having that issue there. So I see there's a question, can you change the color of the font in the page, or must you create a new style for the color change? You cannot change the color within the page. And again, that goes back to consistency, because if you make that color change in the page, then again, it's a matter of remembering, okay, what's the exact color I had on that page? I don't remember it exactly, so that's where, again, it gets a little messy. So that's why we don't allow color changes right on the page. You would want to go ahead and go back to the styles and make that style here. So no, we do not allow for that, unfortunately. All right, let's continue on here. The next thing I want to look at here is the customize section. The customize section, it's going to provide different options depending which style you're using. Now, I'm using the Wonderful Cross theme, so these are the options that are available to me in Wonderful Cross. If you think back just a minute, I talked about earlier how the description of the theme kind of describes how, kind of what kind of size images you would want if you're going to make replacements of like this background image here, this kind of blue kind of faded out cross here in the background. If you wanted to change that out for something else, the system here would tell you, hey, you need an image that's 1600 by 640 pixels. And then where you would change that is you would come to this customize section and you click the browse button, and then you could upload a file from your computer for this image. So then it brings up the file explorer on your computer, and you would go ahead and find that image and upload it. Now again, this is going to use up some of your storage, so bear that in mind. It probably won't use that much, but it will use up some of your storage. Okay, but that's where you can make that change then. There's other changes you can make here too. So like, for example, I could change the link color. So if I click on link color here, this brings up that color picker we saw before. And I could go in here and let's say I want to make that link color just a little bit lighter. Okay, so when I save my changes, when I click on, well, I don't have any links on this page, so maybe a bad example. But let's go back to customize here. Let's change our footer color. Let's go ahead and make that a little brighter. So we're going to change that, save it, and you can see that footer color changed in accordance with the change that we made in that customize section. So that's, again, some ways we can customize some overall site elements then. I'm just going to revert back to our default Wonderful Cross theme, and you can see it back there. Okay, so that's the customize section. Now the advanced section, as the name implies, is a more advanced section of Church360 Unite. This is kind of the middle ground between actually cloning your theme that we talked about earlier to put in custom code and still sticking with a default theme. And so basically, to kind of get in a little bit in the weeds here of what this actually is, we have two sections, custom headers and custom scripts. To speak into the code part of this, custom headers goes in the head tag of every page, custom scripts goes in the closing body tag of every page. And these are basically places for code customizations you could put in that you would want to apply to every page in your site. Now, we do have an article out there that discusses some things you can do with this. It's by no means exhaustive, but if you search customize here in our help center and you look at this article that says, what are some ways I can further customize my theme in Church360 Unite? We have an article here that talks about some different code changes you can make, and I say see the original article here, it will go ahead and actually bring up an article on page that talks about some of the code changes that you might make for different things here. And again, by no means is this exhaustive, but this is largely for, hey, if there's some changes I want to make that I can't do with the default tools that are already here, this is going to help me do that. Now, if I click the edit option here, again, this brings us back to that spot where if we've cloned our theme, we can actually get into the code of the theme. Now, you might think, well, why wouldn't I want access to the code of the theme? Even if I'm not going to use it, I want that option open to me. Well, there are benefits and drawbacks to that. The main drawback here is if you clone a theme. I do want to draw attention to something back here in the settings menu. I go back to social links. Let's take a look at the sentence here. It says, if you've copied a theme to customize it, this option may not be available to you depending on when you copied the theme. What this means is basically we implemented this feature, later on down the line as we were building Church360 Unite. But for those who had cloned their theme, we weren't sure how this new feature was going to interact with the customizations that they've made by cloning their theme. We didn't want to break somebody's church website just by us introducing a new feature. So we said, okay, if you cloned your theme before we released this feature, we are not going to enable this feature for you. If you want to use this feature, you would need to go back to a default theme, and you could then reclone your theme and redo your customizations, and then this would be implemented into it. But so our policy basically is when we release a new feature like this in Church 360 Unite, if you have a clone theme, we don't implement it because we don't know how it's going to affect your customizations. So that is the main drawback if you're going to actually clone your theme so you can get into this custom code section here. So just bear that in mind if that's something you decide to do. Okay, so that's what I have on themes. Let's go ahead next and let's move over to our pages menu. Our pages menu, this is a spot where we're going to see all the different pages we have on our church website, and it's broken up into two areas, our active menu items and our available menu items. The difference between these sections is that your active menu items are what you see when you look over here in your navigation. This is basically how your navigation is prepared. So if I look here at pages, I have my home page, about us, all the pages that are about us, worship times. And if I look at my navigation, home, about us, all the pages that are about us, worship times, it's all there. So we have all that information there. That's what we have in our active menu items. Now, our available menu items, what these are pages that you have created, or you created or you have, but you don't have them in your navigation. Now, maybe in your different pages you have links to these pages, or maybe this is a page where a person just needs to have the website address in order to be able to get to it. But these are pages, again, they're not in your navigation. They are still on your church website, though. People can access them, again, if they have a means to get to them. Okay, so that's the difference between our active menu items and our available menu items. Now, going through here, I want to look at these different icons we see next to pages, and I want to briefly explain what they are. Now, the icon you see next to home and many other pages here is what we call a blank page. That doesn't mean the page doesn't have any content on it, but it just means this is kind of a page, it's a blank slate for you to design on. This is probably what most of your pages are going to be in Church 360 Unite. A blank slate where you go in and then you design the page to start with. What you see next to About Us looks like a stack of pages on top of each other. This is what's called a category. Now, categories are not pages themselves. I can't click on About Us and get to anything. It just is used to organize a group of pages together. So we have what we believe, under About Us, what we believe, mission, vision, our story. This organizes those together. So this is just a way to, you can kind of see how these items are under this category. You can see it's About Us, and then it's indented over. These items are under this category, but Worship Times isn't, because you can see it's not indented over like that. So that's how a category would work. Next unique icon I want to show you here is next to calendar. The calendar is a unique page in your church website. You can't add another calendar page. We'll get into more about the calendar, what it actually does for us next time. But this is where your main site calendar is going to be located. Again, we'll dive more into the calendar next time around. Next icon I want to show you here is next to sermons. This is what's called a feed page. This is what we call a blog post style page. And what I mean by that is you can go to this page and you can add a post to this page. And then a week later, you might come back and add another post to this page. Well, this will take the previous week's post, push it down, and then the latest post would be on top. And so sermons is a great example for that. A lot of churches will go in, and each week they post, hey, here's the sermon from this week, and it pushes the previous week's sermon down the list. You would still be able to see that old content, but it just kind of has it on down the list. So that's a feed style page. We'll get more into those in just a little bit. The next unique icon we see here is this members page. This members page is the online directory piece of Church 360 Unite. Now with this members page, again, this is populated in a couple of different ways. You might have, if you also have the Church 360 members product, your Church 360 members database is connected to your Church 360 Unite page. Or if you have Shepherd staff and you've brought your data in, your people are going to be there. But this is the online directory portion of the site. And again, we'll get more into that next time. One other icon we don't have here, and I'll just briefly add one so I can show you, is a group page. Group pages are like, basically think of these almost like their own little mini websites unto themselves in Church 360 Unite for different groups that you might have at your church, like the choir or youth group or ushers or things like that. Now, for some reason, it's not loading in here. I don't know why that's going on. Let me try that one more time. Okay. Well, I'm not sure why it's wanting to do that or not wanting to do that, but it creates what's called a group page. And again, we're going to get more into group pages next time. But yeah, it's not wanting to save right now. That's okay. We'll just continue on. Now, how we can order our pages here, if we want to change the order that we see here, is if I want to reorder this, I can just simply click and drag these different pages, and this lets me reorder the pages. I can reorder specific pages. I can reorder entire categories. So if I want news before worship times, I can do that. I can just click and drag to reorder those. Now, if I want to add a category, I would click Add Category here. Let me refresh one more time here. Okay. If I add on a category here, okay, let me add that. I can add on a category, and you can see that's near the bottom of the list. But if I save this, you'll notice the category doesn't show up because a category on its own won't show. There's nothing to show on a category that doesn't have any pages under it, because remember, a category is not actually a page itself. So when I come here, if I want this category to show up, I need to have pages under it. So I could take this directions page. Now, if I place directions like this, you notice it's not indented here. So when I save this, you can just see, well, directions just becomes its own item here in the navigation. But if I take directions and I drag it under this test category and save it, well, now it goes ahead here, and now you can see test is a category with a page under it. So remember, with categories, it has to have a page under it before it's going to show up. Let me go back here, put directions back under this category. And if I want to get rid of a category, I just drag it over to my available menu items, and when you do that, it goes away. Categories can't exist in your available menu items. Okay, so that is how we can create those categories and organize those. Next, I want to talk about these buttons down here at the bottom, these actions for selected pages. Now, you might notice next to a lot of our pages, you see this gray box that says draft. So that's a status on this page that controls who gets to see this page. Right now, this draft status is basically saying, hey, we are working on this page right now, but it's really not ready for public consumption yet. It's kind of a page that's in progress. That's what the draft status means. But let's say we've gone through, we finished designing this what we believe page, and we're ready for the public to see it. What I can do is click on this and click publish, and that's going to take that draft status away from this page. So that way, it doesn't matter if you're logged into the site or not. You come to the website, you can see that page. If you decide, you know what, we need to kind of take this page, away from the public for a minute because we're going to be doing some redesigning, so we want to kind of take it down for the moment, we can click Make Draft. That's going to put it back in this draft status. The delete option is very simple. It does exactly what it says. If you click on a page and click delete, that gets rid of the page entirely. So you want to be very careful when you go to delete a page. If you try to delete a page, not really intending to delete, you can see it says one page will be deleted permanently. This action cannot be undone. So this is, hey, very final. My recommendation, if you are not absolutely certain you need to delete a page, what I would advise doing is putting the page in draft status and then moving it over to our available menu items. This is going to make it so the only people who could see this page are people who have the ability to actually edit pages on your church website. Your standard users wouldn't see it, the public wouldn't see it. Only people who would be able to see it are the people who can actually make changes to your church website. So that should be good enough if you're not entirely sure you want to get rid of a page. That would be my recommendation on that. Okay. The next option we see here, I'm going to make this what we believe page published again, is this public and private option here. Now, there may be some pages that you want to be that a person has to be signed in to your site in order to be able to see. So that's why we offer this public and private option. If I click private on a page here, that's going to give it the status of members only. This means you have to be signed into the website to be able to see it. It's very similar to the draft status, except again, your standard members can see it, but not anybody who's not signed into the website. If you want to take that status away from this page, you can click the public button here, and that's going to bring it back to being just a public-facing, anyone can see it page. Okay. Now, the very last option we see here is to duplicate a page. This is a helpful tool because let's say you're doing a redesign on your homepage and you think, man, I really don't want to pull down the old homepage while I'm working on the new homepage. What I'd like to do is I'd like to create a duplicate copy of my homepage. And then what I could do is I could come in here and I could work on my duplicate copy of the homepage while I'm leaving the current homepage up while I'm working on the new homepage. So I'd be able to go through and work on the new homepage, and then once the new homepage is ready, what I could do is I could drag it over here to my active menu items, delete the old homepage, and then I could double click on this to rename this back to just home instead of home 1. And then that would go ahead and go through here and make it like you didn't really have any downtime when designing your church webpage. You can still just go ahead and leave the old one up, and when it's ready, just replace it with a new one. And again, you didn't really have any downtime at all. So that is how we can do a duplicate here. Now, if we want to add new pages, again, we talked about new categories. If we want to add a new page, we click the Add Page button up here, and this is going to let us choose what kind of page we want to create. There are a couple of different kinds of pages. There's the feed page, that's that blog post style page we talked about earlier, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. There's the group page, which we also talked about briefly, and we'll get more into next time. And then there's the blank page here. And again, just kind of a blank slate to work with. These are probably the 3 most common types of pages you're going to be working with. You might be going, well, what about all these pages down here? Well, all these pages down here are blank pages that just have some information pre-filled in for you to kind of give you a start at building a page. These are great resources to just kind of give you some ideas for templating of kind of how you might want to design a page. These are great places to start. But again, most of the time you might just be starting with just a plain blank page. So I'm going to go ahead and click Create Page here. And let's say we want to create a page called VBS. So that's, oh, there we go. So it came up here now. So this creates this VBS page here now. Okay, so that's created a new page. Now, once I'm done making changes here on the Pages menu, I need to click Save Changes to save my work. And then if I want to go to a particular page, there's actually a link for the page under each icon here. So when I click on VBS, this is going to actually bring me over to, I say that, let me refresh my page. This should be bringing us over to our VBS page. Okay, so here we are at this new blank VBS page. Obviously, we have a lot of work to do. So, in order to actually start making changes to this page so we can add content to it, there's a tab over here on the left that says Edit Page. If I click on this, this is going to let me start making changes to my page that I'm on here. So a few items over here on the left to start off with. First off, you can see there's a spot here that says status, and it's either draft or published. So this is similar to what we could do on the pages menu where we're making a page in draft status or published. We can just change it from here though while we're working on the page also. So we can change that on the fly. You'll notice down at the bottom it says save draft when it's a draft status, but if you change it to publish, it'll say published. These essentially do the same thing. It's saving your work on this page. It's just while it's in draft status, it'll say save draft. When it's published, it'll say publish. It's doing the same thing. Next up here is the URL. This is the website address of the page. Now, every page that you're on in your Church360 Unite website, to get to it, people are going to go to your subdomain. So in my case, it's Unite 2025, unite2025.360unite.com / and whatever's after the slash is the specific website address for the page that we're working on here. If you wanted to change this, you could go in here and change this to, instead of VBS, you could say vacation, and you can't use spaces in these. So oftentimes I'll see people use dash in place of this. I could do vacation, Bible, school. And when I save that, that would actually change this link from being, to get to this page, from being VBS to the link would be vacation-Bible-school. Okay, so you could change that there. I'm going to just leave this as VBS for now, though. Page title is just the name of the page. It's what you're going to see up here. If you look at the web browser, there's a little spot that says VBS, and then you have the pipe character, and then the name of the church. You can change that title there. And then finally, the last is meta description. Now, this is kind of, in some ways, kind of tricky to explain, but the basic idea for this is, if you've ever done a Google search before, when you see the results, there's going to be a link to the page at the top, and then there's like a little maybe sentence or two blurb that's just describing what that page is all about. That's what the meta description is. It's just a brief description of this page that would show up in search engines, and this just helps your pages show up better in search engines. Now, you don't want to just stuff a bunch of keywords in here. Most search engines out there, the big one being Google, of course, are kind of set up to filter that kind of thing out. Again, you want to just put a short sentence or two description about what this page is all about, and it's gonna help things show up just better in search results then. Okay, so that's the meta description. Next, I want to kind of bring our attention over here to the right to this dotted line box. Now, this is what we call, this is the editable area of this page right now, this dotted line box, and this is what we call a cell. The cell is the editable area of your church website. You might notice there's a plus above, below, and to the right of this cell. So right now, all the content you put on the page would be in this box, and as you add content, of course, the cell will get longer, and you can add more content to it. But let's say you want to do like a 2-column page. What I could do is I click the plus sign to the right of the cell, and I could add a second cell to this row. So I could go in here and I can then decide, well, I need to change kind of the spacing between these rows. So let's say here, let me save this and just refresh really quick. I can click and drag here, and I can just resize these. So now I have 2 even columns then. So they'd be even on horizontal space, and you can add in more content to both of these. In fact, you could do up to 4 cells in a single row. So you can kind of organize these how you'd like and just kind of change the width of these. So maybe like 4 more even cells here. And so you could do up to 4 of these in a single row here. Or you could add another row. I click the button below, that's going to add a new cell below. And I could take a cell that's even has content in it. I could just click and drag it, and I can move it to a different row. So you can kind of pick up and drag your cells around. This is how you can build the layout of your page. Is you would basically create different cells, and this helps you just, again, control how the page is laid out. Now, you have to have at least 1 cell in every page. If you want to get rid of a cell, you click this remove option here and say remove cell, and that would let you get rid of a cell. So we're going to do that here. I'm going to get rid of all the other cells here for right now. And it's going to get rid of those. Now, that's how we can control the layout, but if I want to actually add in content to these cells, what I need to do is click the pencil icon on the top right-hand corner of the cell, and that's actually going to let me start editing this cell. And this really works very similarly to like a word processor, like Microsoft Word, and how it controls. So if I press Enter, that's going to give me a double space. If I do Shift and Enter, that's going to give me a single space. I could come in here and just start writing text here. And then once I write this text, if I want to apply one of my styles I created earlier, I can come over here, highlight it, and then I can pick, let's say, heading 1, and it applies that heading 1 style I had from earlier. So I can do that. There's a few things I can do with my font on the fly. Like if I want to make this text bolded, for example, I click the bold option. You can see it changes there. Italicized. So there we go. Underline, strike through. I can kind of pick and choose what I want with these. The neat part is you can use the standard keyboard shortcuts for this. So if I do Control B, that's going to bold it. Control I would italicize it, so on and so forth. You can change the alignment of the text here. So I can do the left aligned, right aligned, centered, justified. You could do a bulleted list. So if I click on this little button here for the bulleted list, let's say item 1, item 2, item 3. And then when I'm done with the bulleted list, I just press enter twice, and that takes me out of it. You can do a numbered list the same way. Okay, so you have that there. You can do a block quote. Block quotes are used to kind of highlight a specific quote out or a longer block of text here. So if you want to really draw the attention of a quote here on the page, you could put in here, this is a really important quote. Put that in there, and when you're done here, just go ahead and enter twice, and that'll take you out of the block quote then. You could change your indentation here, so you click the little right arrow here, and that's going to move this to the right. The left arrow, it's going to move your indent to the left. There's undo and redo options. Again, these use the standard keyboard shortcut, so Control Z for undo, Control Y for redo. And then we have the link to menu. There's a few different options here. One thing I will say about this is going to let us create links to different things. But one thing I would recommend with the links here is don't just press the link to menu on its own. Otherwise, it's going to give you a raw link, and that always looks a little bit messy on a page. What I like to do is I like to write some text first. So let's say this is a link. Okay, and then what I would do is I would highlight this text, and then I would click the link to, and that's going to take whatever link I create and apply it to the text that I highlighted. So when I click the link to menu, we can come to this link type box, and we can choose what kind of link we're creating. So the first up is a page or feed in my site. This lets us link to another page within our church website. So I want to link back to my home page. I'll click here and choose home and click add. And then I can save my work. I'm going to click here to say I'm done working in this cell, and I click Save Draft. Okay, so that's saved my work. And now when I click on this link, this brings me back to my home page. Let me go back here. So I'm going to go back and edit this. And if I edit this and go back and I'm going to edit my cell again, and I click on this link, this gives me a couple different options. If I click the edit link here, this will let me go ahead and change the website link here. So you can do that here. You would just put in whatever the URL is for the other page you want to link to. And if you click this open in a new tab, if you turn this option on, when you click on this link, instead of it being in the same tab that you're in, it'll open up a new tab in your web browser when you click on that link. So that's the first type of link we could create. There's also an option here that is unlink. This would remove the text. This would remove the link from the text, but still keep the text there. So that's the first type of link. It's linking to an internal page. Now, if you click the link to option again, another option here is to link to any URL. This will let you link to another website. Then, so somebody asked, can I link to a link that's on a page here? So I think this is what you're asking here. But if you want to link to another website, what you would do is you need to put in the full website address of where you want to link to. So if I'm just trying to link to google.com, I could do http://www.google.com. So you do have to have that full http://www in front. But if you put that all in and you save it, and I save my draft, when I click on this link, this is going to bring me to google.com. Pretty simple. So that's how you can link to an external website. Now, next up, I'm going to get rid of the text here. There's another option to link to an email address. This is really helpful because what this will let you do, a lot of churches I've seen they've used this as like a prayer request link, where when people click on this link, it'll open up their email, whatever email service they use, and it'll have some things pre-filled out for them. So if I put in the email address here, when people click on this link, when people go to fill in this email, in the to line, the email address I put here is already going to be filled out for them. You can also pre-fill out the subject line and body. So again, going back to the prayer request example, we could say this is a prayer request for, and then in the body here we could say prayer request for. And if I click the add button now and I save this, when people click on this link, it's going to open up whatever email service they use on their computer. I use Outlook here, for example. So you can see it's loading here right now. My cursor's spinning. And it should, in just a moment, be bringing up Microsoft Outlook for me. Try that just one more time. There we go. Okay, well, got a little quick happy there, did it twice. It can take a little bit of time. But this is where we can go ahead. You can see that email address is already filled in, that subject line was already filled in, and the body is already pre-filled in. So again, this can be a really helpful tool just to have people kind of send emails to somebody at the church. Okay, so we have the email link. The last type of link is to a link to a file for download. So when I click on this here, I'm going to remove this, remove the link. The last type of link we can do is we can link to a file that users can download to their computer. So if I do a file for download and I click the upload button here, I can pick a file from my computer to then upload back to back into the system here. So I just go to my documents folder here really quick, and I'll just upload the very PowerPoint we're using for this session today. We'll just go ahead and upload that. Okay, so that's going to upload that PowerPoint file to my Church360 Unite website. So that way when people link people click on this link, it's going to download that file to their computer. So if I click the add button and save this, you can see here over in my downloads, it just downloaded that PowerPoint presentation. Now, uploading files to your site, that is going to use up some of your storage. One thing I want to mention about linking to files is the maximum file size that you can link to for any one file in Church360 Unite is 100 megabytes. That's the biggest file you could link to. And again, it doesn't really matter what your storage size is. It's just going to talk about, it's just saying the maximum size is 100 megabytes. Now, if you decide later you don't want that file on your site and you don't want to use it up your storage anymore, what you would do is you'd go back in like you're uploading a file, and you'll see any assets that have been uploaded to this page. You can also look at all the assets that have been uploaded across all your pages. And if you look at the trash can icon next to this, it will actually just delete that file off your website, so it's no longer using up that storage anymore. So that is how we can go ahead and add links to files. Next item we have here on the list is to add a horizontal line in here. This is going to go ahead and just put this horizontal line in, just kind of serve as a line break on the page. It'd be a helpful thing to have just visually. Next up here we have a insert asset option, and this is going to let us go ahead and insert in images, video, and audio to your Church360 Unite page. So I click insert asset, I click image here, and this brings up the window where I can upload an image. And this works a lot like the file window from before. What we're going to do here is, let me go ahead and navigate over to where I have some images really quick. So I'm just going through here, and I'm going to pull up my pictures, and then Unite. And so let's go ahead and just grab this picture of a bird here, for example. So we have this here, and we're going to click select. And oh, I actually posted that within the block quote. I don't want to actually do that. Let's go ahead and just grab that and put that down here instead. Okay, so now we have this image of our bird. Okay, and we can actually choose how we want it aligned. So it can be left aligned, center aligned, or right aligned. You can choose kind of how you want it aligned on the page. There's an option here for change asset text alternative. This is a option for those who have visual impairment. Maybe use a screen reader on their computer. You can actually describe what you can actually put in the text that their screen reader will read off to them to describe that image. So we can say this is a picture of a yellow bird on a branch. And if I click that, again, if you have somebody visit your website who's using the screen reader, that's what it would read off to them. I'm going to skip this option here for now, but next up here we have change width. This is going to change the size of the image. Now you might be thinking, well, I want to change more than the width, I want to change the height too. Well, there's kind of a built-in rule here in Church360 Unite. When we change the size of an image, we're going to retain the original proportions of the image that you uploaded. So basically, we don't let you change the width of an image without changing the height. It's automatically going to scale so it stays the same, so your images don't get distorted. Now, there's two methods we could use for changing the width of an image. We can either put in a percentage width or pixel value. Now, starting off with pixels, if I want this image to be, let's say 600 pixels wide, it'd have been 600 px. I'll click the check mark here, and that would then, it didn't make much of a change, but it would change the size of the image then to be 600 pixels wide, and the height would match. So let's maybe do something bigger. Let's do 800 pixels, so you can really see it there. Okay, so that made the change there. Now, what I prefer to do is I like to use this percentage option instead because it's, I think, a little bit less abstract. So let's say I want this image to take up 50% of the width of the cell that's in. So I type in 50 and then the percent sign, check that, and then that takes up 50% of the width of the cell that it's in. I like to use this. I think it just scales a little bit more nicely. So that's two ways we can change the size. If I do full size asset here, that's going to just return some of the default settings back to this image. You can also add links to image here. If I click change image link here, a few things can happen with this. You can add a link just like you could to text earlier, just applying it to an image here. So you could do, page or feed in your site, any URL, an email address, or a file that people can download. And if you add a link then to an image, you can also remove the link from the image too. Okay, so that is how we can go ahead and we can add images. Now, video and audio you can also add to your Church360 Unite site, but remember that 100 megabyte limit I talked about earlier. With audio, that's probably not much of a problem still. You're looking for MP3 audio files, and you can pretty reliably get almost an hour's worth of audio, probably under 100 megabytes, without much of a problem. So like if you use audio to sermons, you're probably going to be okay with that. Video is where we can run into some problems though, because in the age of HD video, you can go through 100 megabytes in a matter of minutes. So video can be kind of tough. So maybe it's looking for MP4 video, but what I would say with video, if we're concerned about, we're going to hit that limit before we can do anything, I look at our next option here, to insert media. What this would let us do is, let's say you've uploaded your video to YouTube. You have your church has a YouTube page. We can actually take the video that's on YouTube and put the YouTube player on your page, or again, if you use another media source like Vimeo, you can use Vimeo instead. But what you would do is you would go ahead and you would go to your YouTube page. So I go to YouTube and I would search for whatever video here that I'm trying to add in here. So I'm going to grab a link here. I'm going to grab a video on YouTube. I'm just doing this on my other screen really quick. So let me just grab a recent video we had from Church360 members.
Concordia is a highly secure virtual mobile operating system accessible from any edge device anywhere. What it means,
I don't need the ad here. Sorry, YouTube wanted to play right away and had an ad. But then what I'm doing here is I will go ahead and I'll grab the link here to the video. Oops, maybe. Grab the link to the video, right click and copy it. And I can close the window now. And then I can go ahead and click on this insert media option. I can put that link inside of here. Click the checkbox, and this is going to put that YouTube video player right here on my page. And that doesn't use up any of your storage in Church360 Unite. It doesn't, so you're not bound by that 100 megabyte limit. So this is a great way to get video on your page, even when you don't necessarily have the space for it. So that is how we do video here. The next thing we have here is the table option. I'm not a huge fan of this. Just because if you ever try to use a web page that has a table on your phone, let's face it, most people are using their phones to browse the internet these days. Tables just don't play very nicely with phones, just due to size limitations. You can certainly add a table to your page if you want, though. You would click here, you choose what size table you want, and it's going to add that table to your page, and then you can add content to these tables. So it is an option there if you want. I would probably recommend that we avoid tables, though. Next up here is a group link option. This is going to let you, this is a special link to the group style pages that we talked about earlier today. We're going to get into more detail next time, but we'll talk more about that then. And the last option we see here is to link to put in a HTML block. This lets put a block of custom code right on a page. There might be different reasons you would need to do that. A lot of times, like we'll hear from churches that use Vanco, and Vanco can provide you with custom URL to kind of have your giving, like a giving page right there, kind of plugged into your church website. So that might be a way we can look at it there. Okay, so we have that HTML block. Okay, now that's everything we can do, and this is what we call a rich text style cell. But we have three other types of cells, and I promise these are not as in depth as the rich text cell. But if you want to, let's go ahead and add a new cell really quick. And if I click the gear icon here and do edit cell type, I could choose another type of cell here to add to my page. So there's three other types we can talk about. Let's talk about the carousel cell. So the carousel option here, is going to create what's called a carousel cell. This is like a slideshow style cell where you can have content, you can have different images kind of cycling through. A lot of churches like to put this on their homepage as a way of just showing different things that are going on at the church. So if I click the pencil icon here, and where it says edit carousel, this is first off going to let us decide, well, does the carousel advance every so many seconds? So yeah, let's say it just advances every, let's say 10 seconds. And then we also need to choose a maximum height for images. So this is where we do break our rule a little bit about images. You need to decide the maximum height of every image. So I'm going to just leave that at 300 pixels. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to add slots to our slideshow, to our carousel here. So if I click add image, I can click select here, and this is where I can start uploading images here. So let's start off with this bird image. And you can even add like a heading and caption to the bottom of this image. So we'll say this is a bird, look at bird. Okay, and then if I click link for linkable, I can actually apply a link to this cell. So I can have a link to any website. And again, you need to put in the full website link. So that's like that http://www.google.com. Or you can link to one of your already existing Unite pages, and you can tell it to open up in the current tab or in a new tab. Okay, but then what you could do here is you'll pick the image, and you can use images that you've already uploaded to your site. And then I click the save option, and that's going to, oops, I did that wrong. My apologies. Let me fix that here really quick. Here. Okay, hold on just a second. I'm not seeing changes being made. My screen is stuck on cell type. Okay. Let me just share and unshare my screen really quick here. Just a moment. Well, maybe. computer's having some technical difficulties here. Hold on just a minute. Well, okay. Let me share that screen. Well, it is not letting me reshare my screen here. Hold on just a moment here.
You can leave the session
Okay.
if you don't end it and come back.
Okay.
So
Let me.
something's locked the appellate.
All right. Give me just 1 minute here. I'll be right back, everybody. Okay. See if we're back here. Okay, thank you for your patience, everyone. Hopefully you are still here. Let's go ahead and let's try to get this going here again. Pull this up. Okay. All right. Sorry. Let's pick up where we left off here. So we were working on our slideshow when we last left off. Hopefully you guys can see my screen again here. So we have our image here of the bird. Let me add in a couple other images here. So we're adding the image. Let's add in a couple others. So let's add that image of communion here. And add that. And add the image of one more image here. So let's get this image here. And if we add all these images in, and let's finish adding that, and we click save, what this is going to do for us, let me save our page here, is it's going to create a slideshow here that you can see as we walk through here. It's going to have these different images in the slideshow. So a lot of churches will do this, and they'll put this like on their homepage to show the different events that might be going on at the church. And you can see it's set to automatically advance here too. So again, a useful tool we offer here. Two other types of cells we'll just mention briefly is if we edit the cell type, another type we can do is we can link to a feed cell. Now feed cells, feeds as I mentioned earlier, are cells where we have blog post style pages. So I could link, for example, to my sermons feed. And when I do that, I could choose to say, well, I want to show the latest 3 sermons, and it would show me whatever 3 latest posts have been mentioned there. We'll talk more about feed cells in another training here, but we can go ahead and it's going to show us the latest 3 posts in that feed. Now, the last type of cell that we offer, again, we haven't talked about calendars yet, but if we go ahead and we edit this and we choose the calendar cell type, what this is going to do for us is this is going to let us, if we've chosen to show any calendars publicly, we could show all the events that are happening on those different calendars that are coming up within the next 8 days. And that's a dynamic thing, so it can show, like, here's everything, all our worship events, here's all our youth events, here's all our fellowship events. You can have those showing up, and there'll be a little box that would show you all the different events that are coming up on those different calendars here. And again, what you would see here if we shared any calendars would be check boxes where we'd be able to pick those events. Okay, so those are the different types of cells, and that's going to bring us to the end of what I have here to present on this in this particular training. So what I want to do next here is I want to switch back here and let's get into our quiz. Okay, so we have a quiz here. We're going to ask you a couple questions, and you're going to have the ability on your in screen here to basically reply to these quiz questions in the session here. So let me pull that up here in just a moment. So tools, there we go. Polls, there it is. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull up here our first question. So our first question in Church360 Unite today is this. Just let me go back. Not terrible time today. All right, any images, video, or audio, or other files that you upload to Church360 Unite will use some of your church's available storage. So thinking about that, thinking about uploading files, when you upload images, video, audio, or other files that you've uploaded to the site, does that use up some of your storage? So you should see an option to select true or false on that on your screen. Go ahead and select if that's true or false then.